Hello ghosts and ghouls, and welcome to another episode of Danica Raven's BiteSize Horror. This week I've had a piece sent in to me by Dale Denton. It's called RPG. If you're sitting comfortably, we shall begin. Richard stood in what to his eyes seemed a blank canvas, an endless picture of pearlescent white with no noticeable features to distinguish texture or size, as if he had been absorbed into a gigantic cloud, a vacuum of entity. Where the hell am I? He wondered, his mind a mixture of curiosity, wonder, and hint of annoyance. He tried to picture how he had gotten here, but his mind was a blur, as though a mist had descended upon his very thoughts and left him lost without them. The only thing he could remember was the music. Yes, the music that he'd been playing in his car. He'd been driving home and it was raining that night. Yes. It began to drip back to him now. The music, the car, the rain, the crash. Enjoying the view, spoke a soft, inquisitive voice that seemed to echo all around. At the sound of it, Richard darted around to face his host. He was not quite ready for what he gazed. In place of where just moments ago had been infinite white, now appeared a brown wooden desk, and seated behind it was something. It was tall, several feet taller than he, and bone thin, though its arms seemed half the length of its elongated body, with fingers that Richard thought more like miniature spears. Its neck was a length and a half of the size of his, its skin a pale colour that looked almost translucent, and its face was a bulbous void, lacking of eyes, nose, ears, any distinguishable detail or emotion save for a giant Cheshire grin plastered across its face. Takes a while to get used to, doesn't it? Its voice seemed to admit, despite the mouth not moving. Richard was transfixed, as the face did not move, still locked into that constant grinning smile. When Richard said nothing, the creature continued, "Please, have a seat." As it motioned with its arm, a chair opposite its own was now there, as if willed into existence by the mere suggestion of the thing itself. Richard did not move at first. He couldn't imagine what to say or do. He had nothing to explain the scenario in his head. The creature said nothing more. After a few moments, Richard cautiously stepped forward and seated himself, unable to look away from the grinning, featureless face. "So what do you think of the place? Think I should redecorate?" "Is it trying to be funny?" Richard awkwardly thought to himself. The creature was cloaked in silvery robes that were beginning to fray. He could see from this close up. "So, dead. How's that working for you? Easy living, is it?" It had the air of a game show host about it. "Who are you? What is all this?" Richard demanded, trying his best to appear brave despite his inner misgivings. "Oh well, that's easy. You died. In a car crash specifically. Nasty way to go if you don't mind me saying so." Richard couldn't quite get to grasp it. Such crushing news, delivered with such a devilish smile and chipper voice. "So, this is what? Heaven? Hell?" The creature made a gurgling, buzzing noise as if trying to imitate that of an incorrect answer. Wrong guess, I'm afraid. We're more at a stopping station, a main menu if you like. What are you exactly? The Grim Reaper? Not exactly. Think of me more as an interested party, an opportunist. You can call me the developer. I have an offer for you, if you'd like to hear it. Richard could only look at it in silence, unable to discern anything from this thing's blank face, constantly unnerved by its unwavering grin. What kind of offer? I like to think of life as one big game. You were a player in it, and tragically, you lost. Pretty early on too. Barely collected all 151 or passed go. But what if I told you that you could, to put it in simple terms, respawn? Essentially, start again with another life. And the cherry on top, you'd retain all your knowledge, able to carry on in a new body and explore different options, different paths that you didn't or couldn't try last time. You'd be able to level up. Think of all the rich, juicy experience points your soul would soak up doing so. What do you think? Richard was bewildered, to say the least. Is this even real? He pondered. Maybe this is all just one big comatose delusion and I'm still at the car crash unconscious. He didn't know, but the offer was interesting. Starting again, with everything he knew. He had made mistakes in his life. He knew and accepted this. He drank too much. And he should have treated his wife, soon to be ex, better. But what if he could take all that regret and get a fresh start from it, with the knowledge of what to do and what not to do? It was tantalising. It was like the slithering of a serpent within his mind. You're already dead anyway. I'm giving you the chance to live again. Might be fun. So, do we have a deal? Richard closed his eyes and resolved himself. Deal. Fabulous, my boy. He reached over to him with that extension of a limb in a gesture of a handshake. Richard cautiously did so, and as they grasped, the white void around them began to brighten and consume all. The last thing Richard saw before the light took him was that giant, grinning smile leering down at him. When Richard opened his eyes again, he was looking up and reaching out for his dada. The new one, with the silly beard and the pudgy nose. And instead of calling him Richard, he called him Alice. Alice stood once again in the familiar white void of the realm, and there again, waiting for her, was the developer. The same silvery robes, the same expressionless pale face, the same widening grin. It seemed not to have aged a day since she last saw it. Well, well, you've done well for yourself, haven't you? It gestured, and she took a seat. Award-winning journalist and humanitarian, you've levelled up indeed. I'm getting all choked up with pride. They do grow up so fast. She struggled to discern if its tone was filled with sarcasm or genuine glee. So, shall we reload the save again? Who knows what wonders you could do now? She didn't even have to think about it. Deal. For a second, she could swear she saw its bright smile become even greater. But then the light took her, and she was ready to start again. When next he stood in that realm of white, Micah had lived and experienced so much. He had been a teacher, a doctor, a mother, a soldier, a president, a criminal, a lover, an artist, an explorer, and so much more. He'd been so many people that at times he barely remembered who that fool who had called himself Richard had been. He was happier. He was wiser. There sat the developer, as it always did. Before it could even speak to him, Micah told it. Deal. Not quite this time, I'm afraid, dearie. He wasn't sure what to say. It had caught him off guard. This was new. I don't understand. You've done splendidly with your game. So many playthroughs, such alternative paths. You've levelled up and gained so much glorious experience in that soul of yours. It's positively delicious. But like all games, they come to an end. You've reached the final boss. All that's left is God mode. We've had fun though. Well, I certainly have. Micah was stunned by this information. So, what happens now? Was all he could muster in his disappointment. The developer simply sat in silence before uttering 2 words. Game over. Promptly, it stood from its desk and opened its robes. Micah stared in horror at what lay before his mortal eyes. The pale, elongated, bone-like frame of the developer that he was accustomed to. But where a torso should be, in place of it was a giant, vertical maw of teeth with blackness within. As the last of him was chomped down and the screams were gone, the developer once again donned his silver robes. Yum. Retaking its seat behind the desk, it clasped its spear-like fingers together. Suddenly, standing in the white void before it, was a frightened-looking, dark-skinned young woman. New game, the creature thought to itself, as that eternal, evil grin continued to smile. That was the first story submitted to us by Dale Denton. Hopefully we'll be able to read more of his work in future. If you'd like your own story read on the show, why not leave us a message in the comments below? If you enjoyed the show, why not like, comment and subscribe.